In 2019 Paris, every night, single men mysteriously disappeared along the banks of the Seine. Before they went missing, they all heard an extraordinarily beautiful singing voice. The sound was like music from heaven, filled with a mysterious supernatural power that mesmerized these men and drew them step by step into the Seine. That night, another man appeared by the dangerous river. He had just had a fierce quarrel with his father because his father wanted to sell the tavern he was running. The shimmering reflection of the Seine revealed Gaspard's helplessness. At that moment, the strange singing did not appear. Instead, a naked and unconscious mermaid lay on the riverbank. Gaspard rushed toward her immediately. Her upper body looked like that of a young, beautiful girl, while her lower body was a huge, light blue fishtail. The tail was wounded and kept bleeding blue blood. Gaspard, being kind-hearted, didn't care about who or what she was. He quickly took off his jacket and gently covered her with it. When he leaned closer and heard her faint, fragile breathing, Gaspard realized that if he didn't help, this girl would die right there. So he picked her up in his arms and ran toward the hospital. This simple act of kindness would soon bring him a legendary experience he would never forget. When he carried the girl to the bustling street, not a single taxi stopped for such a strange patient. Panicking, Gaspard didn't know what to do. Just then, an Indian man drove by in a three-wheeled motor cart. Gaspard stopped him, paid a high price, bought the tricycle, and drove it himself toward the hospital with the girl. Soon, Gaspard arrived at the hospital in a rush, not daring to pause for even a second as he hurried to the front desk to register. At that moment, a doctor named Victor noticed the strange patient at the entrance. The girl's human upper body and fishtail, along with her blue flowing blood, immediately caught his attention. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Victor began examining her without hesitation. As the light shone into the girl's eyes, she slowly regained consciousness. Seeing the strange man approaching her, she instinctively began to sing the song of death. The sound was exactly the same as what the missing men had once heard. Victor was instantly captivated by the enchanting melody. His eyes went blank, a crazed smile spread across his face, and he looked as if he had been possessed, losing all control of himself. But the fleeting pleasure vanished in an instant, replaced by an unbearable pain in his chest, as if an invisible hand had clenched his heart. He staggered toward the hospital in agony, seeking help. Meanwhile, Gaspard, who couldn't provide any medical insurance for the girl, was coldly turned away at the front desk. Knowing that he could not delay any longer, Gaspard had no choice but to take the girl back home on the tricycle. When he went home, he didn't notice that the landlord saw him carrying the mysterious girl into the house. Inside, Gaspard gently placed the girl in the bathtub, brought out some of his own clothes, and dressed her carefully and tenderly. Then he poured some clean water over her body. With the nourishment of the water, the sleeping girl slowly opened her eyes. Seeing the strange man pouring water over her, she instinctively raised her hand and tried to sing the deadly song again. But just as the tune began to leave her lips, Gaspard, thinking she was trying to shake hands, eagerly reached out and held her hand. That polite gesture interrupted her spell. She was surprised by the man's behavior. It was the first time she had ever shaken hands with a man. Puzzled, she watched him gesture and speak softly, sensing the kindness radiating from him, and so she withdrew the killing intent from her eyes. Gaspard introduced himself and asked with concern if she was hungry. Then he stood up and went to the kitchen to make her something to eat. He prepared a delicious pan-fried steak. He didn't know if she could eat it, but he made it according to human habits. While Gaspard was away, the girl tried to get up and escape. But the sharp pain from the wound on her tail forced her to give up the idea. Her body was weak from hunger and exhaustion. Looking around, she saw a yellow plastic duck by the bathtub, and mistaking it for food, she grabbed it and bit down hard. Then she realized it wasn't edible at all. At that moment, Gaspard returned with a plate of food, looking puzzled when he saw the headless toy duck. He gently cleaned up the mess she had made and asked if her wound still hurt. Without waiting for her answer, he began talking about how he used to care for small animals, saying he had plenty of experience in that area. Then he took out some medicine and gauze to treat her wound. Seeing him approach her body again with unknown tools, the girl instinctively started singing the song of death once more. Her eyes were filled with cold vigilance and deadly intent. Gaspard, misunderstanding, thought she was singing to ease her tension. Since he had been a singer at his tavern, performing every night for customers, he had his own understanding of music. As soon as he heard her melody, he hummed along, adding his own tune to it, trying to help her relax. His sudden humming interrupted her deadly chant once again. The girl stopped and looked at the man still humming while treating her wound. Feeling the medicine working to heal her, she realized this strange man was truly helping her. Sensing his kindness and sincerity, she finally let her guard down. She looked at him softly and said, "Lula." That was her name, and her way of showing trust. Gaspard froze for a moment, surprised that she could speak. Before he could say anything, Lula suddenly began coughing violently. Seeing this, Gaspard quickly brought over the meal he had just made to comfort her. Having never encountered human food before, Lula didn't know what it was. Patiently, Gaspard demonstrated how to eat, showing her how to use the utensils and gently placing them in her hands. Sensing his kindness, Lula took a small bite. The taste spread in her mouth. It was unexpectedly pleasant. She nodded in appreciation. But soon, the light in Lula's eyes dimmed, and a faint sadness shrouded her expression. She told Gaspard that she must return to the sea before the third sunrise, or the blood in her body would be completely drained. The kind-hearted Gaspard told Lula not to worry, saying she should first rest and let her tail heal. Otherwise, even if she went back to the sea, she wouldn't be able to adapt. He promised her that he would take her back to the ocean within 3 days. Hearing his sincerity, Lula agreed to stay. Before saying goodnight, Gaspard carefully took away the surviving plastic toy ducks, afraid that she might bite off their heads again. Late that night, Gaspard had a terrible nightmare. He dreamed that the doctor he met at the hospital had suffered cardiac arrest and died in the operating room. The horrifying image jolted him awake in terror. What he didn't know was that the dream was real. The doctor had truly died in the hospital. He also had no idea of the danger Lula brought with her. When the first morning sunlight filled the room, Gaspard immediately asked Lula how she was feeling, but she abruptly interrupted him.
Vous avez mal au cœur?
Perhaps she had finally come to trust his sincerity, because Lula began to tell him the truth. She said that her song was a curse. Whoever fell in love with her would die, worried that Gaspard might truly fall for her and face death. Lula begged him to return her to the ocean as soon as possible. But Gaspard thought she was joking, and he didn't take the so-called curse seriously. After making sure Lula was settled, he left the house and went to the tavern. What he didn't know was that shortly after he left, his landlady Rossi quietly entered his room. Rossi saw Lula lying in the bathtub and assumed she was Gaspard's new girlfriend. She even praised her beautiful mermaid costume. Lula said nothing, quietly listening to Rossi's chatter. During their small talk, Rossi began telling stories about Gaspard's past. She said that he had grown up in his parents' tavern, a place filled with countless happy memories. But after his mother died, Gaspard fell into a deep, endless depression, trapped in his past and unable to move on. Worse still, he suffered a painful betrayal in love, leaving scars that never healed. Now the tavern itself was on the verge of bankruptcy. The double blow of love and career made Gaspard shut himself off completely. He withdrew into his own world, drifting further and further from everyone else. Hearing all of this, Lula felt a faint ache in her heart for him. When she curiously asked why Rossi was telling her these things, Rossi smiled and said that Gaspard was a kind and gentle man, and she hoped Lula's presence could be the medicine that would help him heal again. Lula didn't quite understand human emotions, but she said she would try her best to understand and help him. So Rossi left with satisfaction. As she was leaving, she accidentally left her cigarettes behind. Curious, Lula imitated Rossi, lit a cigarette, and took a puff. But it was her first time. She choked badly, coughing violently. In her panic, she accidentally knocked over a perfume bottle nearby. The burning cigarette fell into the spilled perfume, and the alcohol in it quickly caught fire. Within moments, flames spread rapidly throughout the room. By the time Gaspard received the news and rushed home, firefighters had already extinguished the blaze. In the charred ruins, the fire captain, who had stayed behind alone, suddenly heard that same haunting, beautiful song of death. The melody drifted through the smoke, filled with mysterious, irresistible allure. Fortunately, Rossi arrived just in time and called out to him, snapping him out of the trance. However, still under the spell of that dreamlike song, the fire captain only gave Gaspard a mild warning for his dangerous use of fire, his tone unusually gentle. Gaspard entered the ruined room anxiously, only to find the bathtub empty. Lula was nowhere to be seen. Terrified that she might have been hurt by the fire, he frantically searched the house. He looked everywhere, panic in his eyes. Finally, he found Lula curled up under the bed, quietly crying. To Lula's surprise, Gaspard didn't scold her. Instead, he gently asked if she was hurt, his voice filled with genuine care. His warmth and understanding gave Lula a comfort she had never known before. Since Gaspard's home was no longer livable, he temporarily left Lula in Rossi's care. When he returned to clean up the ruins, the sight before him made his heart ache deeply. The piano and toys his mother had left behind were charred black by the fire. Even his beloved guitar was completely destroyed. As he went to take a closer look, he slipped on several scattered marbles on the floor. He didn't even know where the marbles had come from. In that moment of falling, Gaspard suddenly felt as if everything was fate's arrangement. Lula, like an angel sent by heaven, had come to cut him off from his painful past and rescue his long-closed heart. Thinking this, Gaspard no longer felt sorrow. He steadied himself, took a deep breath, and went to see Lula again. He asked with concern about the wound on her tail. Since the third sunrise was approaching, he needed to make sure she was fully healed so he could keep his promise to send her back to the sea. Perhaps to commemorate this strange bond, Gaspard brought out the only surviving ukulele and decided to sing together with Lula, just like that night they met, to preserve this miraculous encounter in song. He also planned to record their singing as a precious memory to keep forever. Their soft, beautiful voices echoed in the small room, flowing like a gentle stream, clear and tender, like birdsong. Sunlight filtered through the window and fell upon them. From strangers to companions, they had gradually crossed the boundary between species and were now standing at the edge of love. Gaspard's long-sealed heart was slowly awakening. He couldn't help but lean closer, trying to catch the fragrance of her lips. But just as the moment grew intense, the sound of the recording finishing broke the silence. Lula smiled, showing no resistance to his feelings. Embarrassed, Gaspard picked up the finished disc and awkwardly tried to cover his impulsive behavior, insisting that the song would surely become a hit one day. But before he could finish speaking, a sharp pain pierced his chest. Lula instantly understood. Gaspard had fallen in love with her. He tried to deny it, refusing to admit the truth. Past heartbreaks had left him afraid of love, and he argued stubbornly, insisting that he felt nothing for her. Yet the stabbing pain in his heart kept reminding him that his feelings were real. Time with Lula passed faster than he could imagine, and soon evening came. So he invited Lula to visit his parents' old tavern. When Rossi heard about it, she happily brought out her collection of elegant dresses for Lula to wear. She even trimmed Lula's nails and applied delicate makeup to her face. That evening, filled with romance, a shabby three-wheeled cart slowly rolled through the city, carrying the two of them toward the tavern. In front, the gentle Frenchman Gaspard drove the vehicle, while in the back sat the graceful, beautiful mermaid girl, Lula. The glowing city lights slid past behind them like flowing water. Lula hadn't had enough of the view when the tricycle came to a stop. The destination had arrived. Everything around her was new and fascinating. Gaspard pushed a wheelchair over and gently wheeled her toward the small tavern filled with the memories of his childhood. The moment Gaspard's father saw Lula, an inexplicable warmth rose in his heart. Overjoyed, he immediately arranged a small ceremony to symbolize love between Gaspard and Lula. Lula was curious about the ritual. She watched as Gaspard put on a blindfold, and yet, even without sight, he still managed to pop the balloon filled with petals. As the balloon burst, countless red flower petals fell gently from above Lula's head. Something deep inside her stirred, an emotion she had never experienced before. Perhaps it was at that very moment that Lula truly began to understand what human emotions meant. Human feelings are complex and diverse, encompassing love, family, and friendship, connecting hearts and giving people the strength to live. After several rounds of drinks, Lula finally opened her heart completely and began to tell Gaspard about her tragic past. When she was a child, she witnessed a brutal tragedy. A greedy sailor had become obsessed with her mother's shimmering tail. He schemed to capture her mother with a fishing net. Desperate for freedom, her mother fought back with all her strength, but the sailor was cruel and merciless. He plunged a sharp knife straight into her heart. Her mother's struggle slowly came to an end until she completely lost her life. Lula could only watch in horror, powerless to do anything. As she spoke, her eyes grew distant, as if she were reliving that dreadful day. Later, when she discovered that her singing could bring death, she began using it to punish wicked men. She was grateful that Gaspard had not been harmed by her song. Otherwise, she would have regretted it forever. Hearing her story, Gaspard's heart ached even more, and his desire to protect her grew stronger. Inwardly, he made a promise to himself that he would safely return Lula to the sea. As the soft music began to play, Gaspard took Lula into his arms and led her gently into the dance floor. Under the beautiful, dreamlike lights, they swayed slowly together. He gazed at Lula with deep affection. Lula responded with a gaze equally warm and sincere. At that moment, they broke free from all boundaries, no longer human and mermaid, just two souls in love, dancing freely in a sea of music. Beautiful moments never last long, and soon it was time for the tavern to close. Looking at the clock, Gaspard realized there was still time before the next sunrise, so he decided to cherish it by taking Lula out for one more trip. Riding the same old tricycle, he drove her through the quiet streets toward the romantic Eiffel Tower. The tower's dazzling lights illuminated their faces inside the moving cart. Gaspard raised his lips and played a gentle tune on his harmonica for Lula. Moved by the melody, Lula instinctively leaned closer, sharing the same harmonica with him. She didn't realize that this intimate act carried the deep affection usually shared only between lovers. Unlike ordinary couples' date spots, Gaspard took her to the aquarium. When Lula saw the enormous tanks that looked just like the sea, she became excited. Without hesitation, she slipped off her clothes and slid gracefully into the water. Surrounded by schools of fish, she wandered freely through this blue homeland. The breathtaking sight left Gaspard completely spellbound. His eyes followed her every movement, captivated by her beauty. His heart seemed to drift along with her, immersed in the same shimmering water. He couldn't help but take off his shoes and, without hesitation, jumped into the water, swimming toward her. Noticing him, Lula turned around and swam to meet him halfway. The two of them moving toward each other formed a picture as stunning as a dream, like lovers reuniting after a long separation. They floated together in the warm current, silently sharing their love and understanding through every glance and touch. But just as their affection reached its peak, Gaspard suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his chest. Indeed, he could not escape the deadly curse. Any man who fell in love with a mermaid would suffer this pain of the heart. He instinctively clutched his chest and tried to get away. Realizing his condition, Lula didn't hesitate for a second. She pressed her lips to his and breathed air into his lungs, giving him her oxygen. Then, with all her strength, she lifted him with both hands and carried him upward through the water. Using every bit of her power, she pushed him toward the surface and finally got him out of the water. Fortunately, Gaspard had only fainted briefly. The second day's sunrise came right on schedule. Even though Gaspard was filled with longing and reluctance, he still had to drive the tricycle and take Lula to the seaside. This was the place where they had first met, and now it had become the harbor of farewell. Thinking of this, Gaspard tried to appear strong. He pretended to joke, saying he would never miss her. But as soon as he spoke, the light in his eyes dimmed. The feelings he had buried deep inside, love and sorrow, rose like a surging tide, leaving him unable to hide them anymore. He sincerely wished that Lula could stay. But Lula knew too well the danger that came with her existence. She couldn't bear to bring him harm, and with tears in her eyes, she gently refused. Gaspard wasn't discouraged. There was still some time before the final sunrise, so he said he wanted to show Lula one last surprise as a final farewell for their impossible love. He took Lula back to the house, filled with their memories. Then he carefully switched on a magical animation he had made just for her. As the machine began to move, the figures inside slowly came to life. Lula watched in awe, her eyes brimming with tears as she saw Gaspard's clumsy yet endearing image in the animation. In her mind, she began to imagine a happy life together with him. But then, she remembered the cruel reality, that her existence could take his life at any moment. Their love was fragile, standing powerless against the barrier of the supernatural. Unwilling to harm Gaspard, Lula chose to give up her feelings. To keep him from seeing her sadness, she told him she wanted a live fish and asked him to go out and buy one. Once Gaspard left, she could no longer hold back her sorrow and began to cry uncontrollably. Her tears turned into pure white pearls as they fell to the floor. Just as the legend said, when a mermaid weeps for love, her tears become rare and precious pearls. They were not only tears of love, but also of heartbreak, longing, and a beautiful yet tragic goodbye. Time was running out for Gaspard. After that night, the third sunrise would come. If Lula hadn't returned to the ocean by then, she would die. On the empty midnight road, a tricycle sped forward with a bathtub tied behind it. Gaspard drove the tricycle in front, and because he couldn't bear Lula's departure, The pain in his chest grew sharper, making his face turn pale. In his hand, he held a new pink walkie-talkie, constantly talking to Lula, who lay weakly in the bathtub behind him. Lula, barely conscious after being away from the sea for too long, responded to his words in a faint whisper. Their memories together flashed through her mind like a carousel of light. The bumps along the way made Lula lose her grip on the walkie-talkie, and it fell to the ground. Hearing no sound from Lula through the walkie-talkie, Gaspard knew he couldn't afford to delay any longer. Enduring the sharp pain in his chest, he sped forward as fast as he could, racing toward the ocean. Finally, just as dawn began to break, he reached the shore. He gently held Lula in his arms and then stepped into the sea. The cold wind brushed his face while waves lapped at his legs. The pain in his chest grew unbearable, but he pressed on. Holding Lula close, he slowly waded deeper into the water he had never dared to enter before. As the waves rose from his knees to his shoulders, every droplet seemed to witness their deep love. When the sea was about to swallow them, he let go of all fear and sorrow and kissed Lula with all the love in his heart. After they decided to let go of their love, Lula slipped into the deep ocean like a spirit of the sea. Unwilling to part, she turned back once more to look at Gaspard, memorized his face even more deeply, and finally disappeared into the vast blue waves. Watching her leave, Gaspard's heart twisted in unbearable pain, and he collapsed into the sea. At the very last moment, a woman nearby saw him and pulled him out, saving his life. Back home, Gaspard looked at the bottle filled with pearls he had collected. Later, experts identified the pearls as pure mother of pearl, with an especially delicate texture and immense value. Gaspard sold part of the pearls to buy a large ship. He planned to sail into the ocean to find the Lula who lived in his memory. Before leaving, he gave the remaining pearls to his father and asked him to use them to reclaim their family tavern. His father supported his decision and bid him farewell with pride and tears. Thus began Gaspard's new journey. No matter how fierce the waves or how sharp the rocks ahead, he sailed forward with stubborn determination, only to hold Lula in his arms once more. Some say it's nothing more than a sugar-coated fairy tale. But they do not understand that love itself is a divine contradiction. It gives us the brilliance of stars, yet hides the burn of falling meteors. Just as we can never hold both our fading youth and our clear awareness of it at the same time, some moonlight is destined to remain locked within the glass bottle of memory. But even so, that light once illuminated our longing, no matter if we've become strangers now.